Alright everyone, chill. Bobby Drake Iceman is one of those overlooked mutants who could potentially destroy the entire Earth. So it's time to cool the heck off as we go over the 10 secret powers that you never knew the X-Men's Iceman had. Also, if you can tell me what movie I was referencing with that first line in the comments down below, gold star for you. Number 10. Thermokinesis. Considering his name is Iceman, everyone knows that Bobby Drake has cryokinesis, aka the ability to generate, manipulate, and fully control ice and snow. But this goes hand in hand with his thermokinesis as well. This is the ability to lower both his external and internal body temperature, which projects intense coldness from his body. Like the rest of us humies, the nerve centers for regulating Iceman's body temperature are found in the part of the brain called the hypothalamus. Unlike us though, Iceman can mentally override his hypothalamus to allow his body temperature to be lowered. This ability converts the latent thermal energies in and around his body into an unknown form of energy that is then dissipated. Now this would potentially hurt a human, but a related mutation has also rendered his body tissues unaffected by sub-zero temperatures, thankfully and luckily. Iceman can consciously immediately lower his body temperature from its normal 98 degrees Fahrenheit to absolute zero and lower within the span of a few tenths of a second. Number 9. Icy cover. As Iceman's body temperature drastically falls, the surrounding moisture in the air that is in contact with him also begins to lower in temperature. In a similar but much more extreme way that condensed moisture forms frost, the moisture surrounding Iceman forms an icy covering which encompasses his entire body and obscures his face. When Iceman first began doing this and appeared in the early X-Men comics, this ability essentially made our mutant look like a snowman. He was covered head to toe in snow. But as Bobby learned to increase the severity of his coldness, the consistency of this frozen moisture became crystalline ice. This ice constantly cracks with any movement of his body and immediately reforms, allowing Bobby to move, but with a cracking ice sound every time. Through practice, Iceman has learned to control the intensity of his coldness, and he can selectively lower the temperature of isolated parts of his body to cause this icy shielding in specific areas. Number 8. Organic ice form. But Bobby doesn't only cover himself in ice, he can also completely become ice. Hilariously and kind of redundantly, it's called organic ice. I don't even know if that makes sense. Though the appearance can be similar to when he covers himself in ice, in this form Iceman is now virtually indestructible, or rather, he is basically unkillable, able to reform himself from being shattered or evaporated, and he is completely translucent in his ice form as well. He has even been incinerated while in human form and was able to rebuild himself in ice. In his ice form, he is able to use the moisture in the air to form spikes, shields, and attach other extra appendages to his body, which he can use in combat. Number 7. Ice Golems. Unsurprisingly, Iceman has the ability to create structures out of ice. The level of detail is determined by his own imagination, as his mastery over his powers has reached the atomic level. For most of his superhero career, Iceman was not able to make the ice sculptures move of their own accord, but this all changed during the Battle of the Atom event in 2013, when Iceman showed off a new extension of his abilities. It was revealed that Iceman can create basic ice structures that possess a rudimentary intelligence. One of these sculptures actually rebelled against Iceman and joined the Brotherhood, which is just freaking weird. It also makes no sense, but this is a comic, so we just go with it. These constructs have been seeming ice clones of Iceman himself, or they have also been big, hulking behemoths and ice monsters. Some other constructs Bobby has created have been turning raindrops into fists that he used against the Iron Fist, a crystal-like ice focuser able to focus the laser beams of Cyclops, and even an entire ice city with intricate details. Number 6. Ice Zord. Bouncing off those semi-sentient constructs to something a bit more awesome that I think deserves its own whole point. In Wolverine and the X-Men issue 33 to 34, Iceman is part of a group of mutant faculty at Wolverine's Jean Grey School for Higher Learning sent to take on the Hellfire Academy and Cade Kilgore. Cade has been utilizing a handful of sentient living volcano behemoths to defend his academy, and while the heroes have a sentient living island fighting on their side, they only have one. So, what does Iceman do? Iceman creates an absolutely massive ice behemoth that looks like Voltron or like a Power Ranger Zord, with an absolutely massive ice sword, and he takes it into battle, slicing the behemoths apart and yelling "Glacier Fist" as he commands the ice Voltron from inside an ice cockpit. It's absolutely amazing and completely bonkers. Number 5. Hydrokinesis. Alright, so we know Iceman can control ice. But there was a time when Emma Frost mentally controlled Bobby, and she utilized his powers in ways that he had never even imagined. It turns out that since Iceman can control ice, which is just frozen water, then it actually makes total sense that he also has hydrokinesis, or the ability to manipulate water. And since he is a potential Omega level mutant, he can do it at a molecular level. We know that he can use surrounding moisture to augment himself, but when Emma was controlling him, she used his power to travel within large bodies of water very quickly by breaking down to his base levels in the water and then reforming at his destination. Iceman has demonstrated the ability to be transformed into nothing more than water or water vapor, yet remain conscious and retain the use of his powers. Essentially, wherever there is any moisture of any kind, Iceman is a threat. Number 4. Cryokinetic Perception / cryo travel. Okay, so I'm going to wrap these two up into one, even though they aren't really technically fully the same, although they kind of are at the same time. For starters, after Bobby, whose powers were significantly amplified and who was kind of a little bonkers at the time, managed to freeze the earth in ice and snow, he gained the ability to spread his actual consciousness through the ice and through the snow to allow him to perceive literally all events occurring within it. He could monitor the entire earth through the ice and snow, and it made him practically a god. With his ability to transform organic matter, such as the human body, to organic ice and back again, it is possible for him to project his consciousness through moisture molecules and reform his body at the destination, like he did when Emma Frost controlled him, and he did indeed do this in this story as well, traveling through the ice and snow and appearing wherever he wanted. Number 3. Cellular Replacement. We already talked about, a few times, Iceman's hydrokinesis and how he has literally turned himself into and traveled through the molecules of water. Well, Bobby also eventually discovered that he was able to use his control over moisture to draw ambient moisture into himself and thus use that moisture to replace his own body's cells. Quote, "A body swap done one piece, one cell at a time." This upgrade to his already insane abilities allowed Bobby to avoid receiving a fatal dose of neurotoxin by letting the poisoned molecules of his body dissipate into vapor and then be replaced by untainted water molecules from his surroundings. Iceman can replace his own cells with new ones, healing and purging himself by remaking his own body. As long as there is moisture, Iceman cannot be stopped, it's just a fact. Number 2. Thermo Vision. With such a fine-tuned control over cold and temperature like what Iceman has, it would make sense that he would be able to maybe sense or feel heat. But it turns out he can literally see it. Because of the absence of heat around himself when his temperature is dropped, Bobby can literally see beings simply based on the heat signatures they give off. This happened most famously when the X-Men were facing against Onslaught. At the time, Onslaught managed to mess the X-Men's perception of things and became invisible. Luckily, the X-Men had Bobby. He scanned the entire room, and thanks to the heat that Onslaught's body was naturally giving off, Bobby saw Onslaught the minute he entered the room, using his ice blasts to attack him and break his psionic shielding, allowing the other X-Men to see him too. And finally, in at number 1, he can stop the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut is not just strong. The Juggernaut is fueled by magic, powered by a massively powerful extra-dimensional being called Sidorak. Through Sidorak, Juggernaut was granted the ability to gain unstoppable momentum with each step, to the point that not even the hammer of Thor can stop him in his tracks. Who cares about ancient magical Uru metal hammers though, when you have the power of ice? Iceman managed to completely stop the Juggernaut in his tracks during one of the X-Men's many encounters with Cain Marko. Now it is worth noting that Juggernaut was not in his top form at the time, but regardless, stopping the Juggernaut dead in his tracks using massive amounts of ice to immobilize him is incredibly impressive. But it wasn't the only way Bobby has stopped the guy. And this one, I have to warn you, is ridiculous even for a comic book. During another battle with the Juggernaut, Iceman got creative with his powers. Iceman used his powers to, and I quote, freeze the speed of light around him. Freeze the speed of light around Juggernaut. Iceman is so powerful, he temporarily rewrote the laws of physics themselves to achieve his victory. It's also worth noting that in this same fight, he created wings made out of ice that actually allowed him to fly, which I don't think is possible. Personally though, if it was me, and I'm just gonna put in my own little opinion here, I would just make like a loop of ice so the Juggernaut slips and goes around and around and around and around, gaining speed and momentum, and then I would give it like a little offshoot ramp and just send him careening into space, like unable to stop. He would just be gone. What are you gonna do? Nothing. You can't stop. I'm just saying. But there you have it. I'm Adam Andrews, this is Top 10 Nerd, and I'll catch you guys on the flippy flop. Peace out, nerds.